Greetings and good evening, Jokoistas. Welcome to the Joko this week, the Resistance Report, as we're going to have on Mwezi Odom from Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa, to update us on what's next with the case of the Uhuru 3. Before we get started on that, I want to bring on my partner and comrade, Tasha. Greetings, Tasha.
Greetings, good brother Yusuf, and greetings, everyone. And as always, we start by acknowledging our ancestors that bring us here as African people, and then to further acknowledge that the work that we do for the liberation of our people is done on the unceded territories of the Tongvar people. Um, of the Los Angeles basin, right? The original inhabitants, the indigenous folk of these lands. And, lest we be totally out of sync with our liberation values and the truths that we have come to assimilate and adopt, we recognize that as bloody and tortured and long as our legacy is with the colonizer in Turtle Island, this land is not ours to absorb as we uh, become sovereign, as we become liberated. We do so at the hospitality of the indigenous people and are always in respect and deference to indigenous people. And so that's how we always like to open. And I think we're going to go ahead and bring on our good sister Mwezi Odom, who will introduce herself to us and give us her background one more time for anyone who has not joined us before. Sister Mwezi.
Welcome,
Greetings.
Wazy.
Thank you.
Greetings.
Thank you so much. I want to appreciate both you, brother and sister Tasha and Youssef, for having me on tonight, and just want to join you in acknowledging whose land we are on, and that the struggle still continues, and until in a material sense, power is restored back to those who it rightfully belongs to. So just I
Yes.
want to say my name is Mwezi Odom, and I am a member of the African People's Socialist Party. I serve as the Secretary General for the organization. It's a great honor, and for the past 2.5 years have been leading our most important general campaign called the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa, a defense campaign, which was initiated following violent FBI raids on 7 homes and properties of the Uhuru movement in 2 cities, pre-dawn raids in St. Louis, Missouri, and St. Petersburg, Florida. And this campaign has was initiated to defend initially 4 of our leaders who were named as unindicted co-conspirators, and later 3 of our members who were indicted by the U.S. government and the FBI to, saying that they were working as foreign agents for a foreign government, aka Russia, and also conspiring to act against the United States and sow discord. And so this has been a 2.5-year struggle. We had our court date in September, and we were able to have a victorious verdict that dropped the greater charge of 10 years of working as Russian government, working as Russian agents, and we are coming up on. This coming Monday, December 16th, is the sentencing for the lesser charge of 5 years in prison for Chairman Amalia Shatella, who's the founder of the Uhuru movement, Penny Hess and Jesse Neville, who are 2 white or North American comrades who are also facing, these charges. And all 3 of them, in addition to the 5 years, are also facing up to $250,000 each in fines. And so that's some of the work that I've been doing. And I want to appreciate Joko Collective and, just the work of this organization to help keep this this case and this fight back, in the minds of the people. So I'll just leave it there. But that's just a brief and kind of give you a quick catch-up overview on,
Right.
why I'm here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to, since the split verdict came down, I know there have been ongoing rallies. Um, can you uh, can you talk about that process? Have you been involved in the rallies? I think they've been like weekly on Sundays.
Yes, correct. So, yeah, so the rally that Brother Yusuf is referring to is a Sunday rally that is a very, historically a community rally that the Uhuru movement has hosted at the Uhuru House. So the one in St. Louis, Missouri, as well as the Uhuru House in St. Petersburg, Florida. Every Sunday at 3 and 4 o'clock, Central Eastern
Mm-hmm.
Time, we'll have a Sunday rally that's virtual, but also opens it up for the community to come. We, bring issues that are important to the community to the Sunday rally. We have food, we have an opportunity to ask questions, and we usually have a special guest or a special topic that we are covering, to give the people an opportunity to bring our issues, to the community, and to have the community, make a determination on how we know
Mm-hmm.
we should move, how to sum up politically what's happening to us. And so one of those Sunday rallies is actually taking place this Sunday, also in St. Petersburg, Florida, on December 15th, the day before the sentencing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that one is focusing on the sentencing coming up.
Correct. Yeah. So there's part of how this Sunday rally will be looking, and to say that this one in particular, we're expecting, nearly, close to or even more of 100 people that will be there on the ground that are coming in from all over the country, coming to St. Petersburg, Florida, where the Uhuru House is. This was ground zero, one of the sites that was, that was heavily rated
Mm-hmm.
on July 29, 2022. And so the Sunday rally will see speakers there, members of members of our organizations, our organizational alliances, other, I guess you could say, co-conspirators, who will be
Mm-hmm.
there on Sunday. And I can name some of those, just really profound, leaders in the movement. Sister Betty Davis, Afia
Mm-hmm.
Wangaza. You'll also hear from Pam Africa, who is a member of the MOVE organization. Sister
Right.
Lisa Davis, just to name a few,
Mm-hmm.
as well as Sister Belinda Parker Brown. There's many speakers, so I won't even
Mm-hmm.
start going there. But
Is
to say,
did I see Ward Churchill on a list
yeah,
somewhere?
correct. Yes, Ward Churchill and Natsu Saito, Ward Churchill, an activist and author, brings a wealth of information around COINTELPRO, also the
Mm-hmm.
American Indian movement, and
Mm-hmm.
Natsu is, an expert on, settler colonialism and the law. And so all of these, speakers will be not only at the hearing at the hearing, but are also going to come in the day before to, give a salute and to push forward the
Mm-hmm.
Uhuru Three, who you'll also hear from.
Mm-hmm. Kasha, yeah.
And as this has developed and was early and accurately and also uh, ingeniously, right, framed as not only a direct attack on a very effective Black liberation organization and very effective Black liberation leader and an enduring symbol of uh, one of the crests in our wave of building political force, a true
Mm-hmm.
leader, right, from
Right,
the late 60s, from this time, but it has been framed and developed as an attack on free speech, right? This
right.
attack on free speech and this um, perversion and misalignment and misrepresentation of, when and where, right,
Right.
this indelible right can actually be exercised and expressed. And so can you speak a little bit to the kind of range of support that that idea has attracted from across the political spectrum,
Yeah.
as is often said, folks are clamoring to say, hey, this is about free speech, regardless of our differing politics. What does that
Yeah.
look like?
That's a great point, Sister Tasha. I really want to appreciate that question because, again, one of the things that I really appreciate Chairman Amalia Shatella sums up is that, law is the opinion of the ruling class. And so we were clear from the jump that this was a political attack, as you said, an organization that has been effective in building, real concrete institutions that are a criticism of this, of this country and its, government, which, prides itself on being this beacon of democracy and, there to support the people. But in reality, it was true, and it was very clear that this was a political attack, and it was an attempt to crush a movement that is, decades old. And part of what we saw right out the jump was, scores of organizations who recognized this and, who saw this, as an attack, not just on, not just on Chairman Amalia Shatella. Some people didn't even know who our organization was, but but they were familiar with this attack. I mean, we can look back as far as the Panther 21, their trial in the early 1970s. They were also charged with conspiracy, to kill police officers and destroy buildings and burn flower, just like burn the botanical gardens. And the same thing with the Communist Party and the Chicago 8 trial. I mean, there's so many various examples that this attack spread across all political lines. And one of the things that was really important for us to do in the process of fighting back and denouncing these raids, one, but also denouncing the charges that mind you took 9 months for the FBI to even come up with any type of quote unquote evidence that they had to fabricate an indictment, and a bogus one at that. But part of what we were really clear on was that we were not going to let this event with the Uhuru 3 or this attack happen in isolation. And just months, not even months, but weeks later, we also saw the, Israeli settler, IDF, forces raiding Palestinian organizations, and their offices also, in Gaza as well. And so it was very clear that this was a political attack. And part of what Chairman Amalia Shatella, did, and that it was very clear was that this came about 6 months after the United States and NATO and their allies launched this attack on Russia using Ukraine as cannon fodder, as it's been said. And so it was very clear that nobody spoke out about how that this was nothing new and that Russia was actually facing a defensive war. It was Chairman Amalia Shatella who came out right out the gate and was very bold and really just said the truth about what was happening. And at the same time, when this war was initiated, we saw and we heard from Joe Biden and the bourgeois media pushing relentlessly this narrative that what was happening was Russia's aggression towards Ukraine, so that was something that was very clear that it was Chairman Amalia Shatella doing what he has done for over 50 years, was to call out every U.S. predatory war, and was to keep the people honest about, and focused about, what we need to be fighting for and what we need to be against. And he's always been, we've always been anti-colonial, and that hasn't changed. And so it wasn't an attack, on these, criminals as the Uhuru 3 are being, framed to be, but this was an attack, as the chairman says, not only on his right to say what he said, but also on the right for the people to actually hear it. And that was a very clear attack on the First Amendment that this government prides itself in. So hope I answered that, but I really appreciate that question, Uhuru.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
No, go on.
Yes. So, so in that context, and Yusuf, you might chime in on this. All of this being made about the about this conspiracy based on the, based on Chairman's rhetoric and analyses and critique, but he's certainly not alone in this analysis and critique, right? This is happening uh, in numerous quarters, right? In
Mhm.
countless quarters. This is a standard critique and an old critique, right? An
Right.
age-old critique. A critique of colonialism and imperialism has been right alive and well since imperialism, colonialism has been alive.
Right.
As well as capital and the critique of the U.S. U.S.'s movements and schemes. So, um, what else? Because Yusuf, I'm not in touch with the story. I just know it's a thing that has happened. Was it Scott Ritter who was
Mhm.
also attacked
Yes,
and
yeah.
charged and was dropped? What
Well, I
what are
don't
you?
know that. I don't know that. So
Okay,
did you heard that those charges may have been dropped? And I just, I don't know the state of his case. I
okay.
know they went after him this year for more or less the same thing. Right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
His
Hmm.
outspokenness
Hmm.
about the U.S.'s role, NATO's role, right? Basically, this conflict in Ukraine being a proxy war, NATO's proxy war against Russia, and you know, uh, Russia both the defensive character for the Russian Republic,
Hmm.
Yeah.
which even if you just a kind of a materialist analysis, right? If you just look at the board, so to speak, right? Russia is the one that's surrounded, right? Or NATO's in the forward position,
Right.
right? The
Hmm.
if you just look at the board, and so just the tradition, right, going back to World War II, of and the tradition of the Soviet Union and Soviet Russia and the other Soviet republics in the anti-fascist struggle, right? It is the Red Army that won World War II. That softened up, that made it possible, right? So, and that tradition is strong, and he reports on that, right? That the war is not unpopular in Russia,
Right.
because they know they're fighting fascist elements within the Ukrainian government, right? And whatever these various forms of, fascism, or, as we want to call it, in the US and NATO, right? NATO that incorporated German fascist generals into its structure when it was founded.
Hmm.
Guru.
Hmm.
So yeah, they go after, and others. It's unpopular, right? Folks again were losing jobs behind it. Um,
Yeah.
being asked to, or you can't talk about that on the news program, or those are Russian talking points, right? This is, um,
Exactly. Right.
which yeah, this idea
Hmm.
of Russian talking points that can be manipulated, right? Even that position, it gets manipulated by the far right, right? Who can sort of play the peace role when they're just as big, warmongers, right? So
Right. And
Right.
that's exactly. And you mentioned Scott Ritter. He too will actually be there in St. Petersburg, Florida, for the rally and for the, coming to Tampa for the sentencing. Because again, as you said, this, just the part of what as I kind of, frame some of the other speakers as like co-conspirators or unindicted co-conspirators, as it's been said, because, these are all, thought crimes, right? And
mhm,
and this is something that
that kind.
part of what it was really clear, again, as I said, even after this initiation of the war in Ukraine, was this ideology that was trying to be pushed. And Sister Tasha talked about
Yeah.
the U.S. schemes and movements and such, and they have their own thoughts, and this is something that we have to continue to call out. And so I just really appreciate how this case has been able to just really expose the true nature of the United States government. The same thing that we can see with the whole Zionist state and its genocidal war on the people of Gaza, the people on Palestinian people, and Palestinian Arabs. Like this is the time when none of this is going to happen once again in isolation. And so you see forces that would generally never have even met each other, or don't really even have to agree with each other, but who come together on the basic fundamental principle of freedom of speech. I remember, we have, as part of this process, our attorneys who, one of them who is a, like an expert or focus on, constitutional law, Leonard Goodman, and as well as Addie Griffin and Mutaki Akbar, and, just our wonderful legal team have been part of this process and working under the chairman's leadership as well, have, come to even understand this as well. And so it's, this is very clear about how we were able to be victorious in that courtroom, and had the prosecution not completely lied and tried to confuse the, jury, it would have been a different outcome. But part of it, again, was that even in that courtroom, there was this, there was the, struggle to try to confuse the people once again into, into this law that really makes no sense. And again, this is an unprecedented, case in terms of how conspiracy is being used to constitute, like agreement or intent. And, Scott Ritter was at the Black People's March conference in November. And just to say, he had just mentioned some things around, somebody had asked a question, like, what does it mean? Freedom of association and, whatnot. And it was just a very simple answer. And then when the person was almost like, oh, wow, it's just that simple. Like, yes, this is how the law is being used to attack the people for things that we've always done. And so, I just wanted to say it's a blatant attack on the First Amendment rights and allowing governments and states to, crack down on people who disagree with the positions of the state. So,
and oftentimes the law, the Constitution, which is this tiny document, right? You can sit and read it, and and it's not, you know what I'm saying? But it's the level of mystification of these laws and of this documents. It may as well be a, say, 900 page document, but that's great, because it shifts me into this question of how conspiracy is defined. And we find these kinds of very loose threads. And if you will indulge me, I want to read from let me get to the right place in my little document here. Read from the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center's website, U.S. government, that gives a definition for conspiracy, and then it names the elements of conspiracy. Conspiracy can be described generally as a sort of partnership in crime. Legally, a conspiracy exists when two or more persons join together and form an agreement to violate the law and then act on that agreement. The crime of conspiracy was created to address the inherent dangers posed to society when people come together and join forces to commit criminal acts. This is actually, it's a training module, but it's kind of in a Q&A interviewee type context. And the commentator goes on to describe the elements of a conspiracy. He says, well, there are basically 5 elements for the crime of conspiracy. 1, 2 or more persons. 2, intent. You must prove intent. 3, must prove that an agreement was made to violate federal law. So not just any kind of agreement, but a specific agreement to violate knowingly and intentionally violate
Mhm.
federal law or defraud the United States, and then commit some kind of overt act in furtherance of that specific agreement. Um, so, as you said, the thought crime, based on these
Mhm.
elements, we know that the crime of conspiracy is a specific intent crime, a
Right.
specific intent crime. And if you can share with us, well, first of all, just kind of uh, talking about that, it reminds me so much of the, kind of all of the way police enforcement and law enforcement is surrounded by this idea of discretion. Well, how do you define
Mhm.
such and such? How do you
Mhm.
define probable cause?
Right.
Well,
Right.
it's officers' discretion, right? And
Mhm.
it's like a whole lot of discretionary, a lot of room for discretionary um,
Mhm.
shenanigans, right? So much of it is what you say it is. Is it intentional? Well, how do you show that is intended, there's an intention? How do you
Exactly.
show, right? How are you defining agreement? All of these
Right.
kinds of things. Because when we know, because clearly we know that there is nothing criminal
Right.
or conspiratorial about the work that these people have done. Everything they do, they've
Exactly.
Mhm.
open for decades. Jesse's not
Right.
old enough, perhaps, to talk about multiple decades, right?
Right. Mhm. Mhm.
There's no
Yeah.
shame in anybody's game, So
Right.
how how is this achieved? And if you can speak to that,
Right.
in
Yeah.
any way, what are the bases for intent agreement? What are they saying?
Uhuru. Yeah, I want to appreciate that question because what it raises again is just the how ludicrous these charges are, and you read this definition that's supposed to sound like as though it makes sense, and part of what you know again, so to say that the Uhuru three were found guilty in this inconsistent verdict of conspiracy, but one of the things that we've learned, and I've come to learn throughout this case, is that in a conspiracy case, you don't need to actually have committed the crime that they're charging you with to be found guilty of conspiring to commit the crime. So like, as long as the government and or the prosecution can convince the jury or convince others that you, and at least, as you read, one other wanted to commit the crime, then conspiracy, in essence is this thought crime. And but again, like, it doesn't even make sense in our case, because really, if we ask the question is, conspiracy to do what? And again, their whole thing was that conspiracy to act as a Russian agent without
Agent, exactly.
notifying, right, the attorney general. But then that's the charge that we were found not guilty of. And part of what is very clear is like, how could Chairman Amalia Shatella or the Uhuru Three hide from the government on that they were working as agents, um that they were working as agents, when, as the jury even agreed, again, we're not guilty of being Russian agents. And the prosecution, like I said, completely misled the jury by telling them over and over again about this word, as Sister Tasha read, partnership, right? Confusing that
Mhm.
partnership is the same as a conspiracy, but it's
Mm,
not. And
mm,
as you said, the Uhuru movement, have built alliances, and one of the things that was very clear and that was revealed in the court transcripts, and I invite people to go to theburningspear.com/Uhuru TV. You'll see we just finished episode 3 of highlights from the trial, where people had a chance to actually hear what happened, how the jury was selected, what was the government's bogus case, and then how our attorneys shredded their entire case, and how the prosecution lied. All of that is revealed in this reenactment, readers theater style that we did. And I say that because, again, it's clear even where this idea of this partnership was, Chairman Amalia Shatella was very clear, and even stated in communication with this other entity, this non-government organization that the Uhuru movement was in partnership, again, at the time, was that, we don't work for you, we don't work for the Russians, we are entering this, into this agreement to push for our agenda, the agenda for Africa, right? The agenda that has always been, at the forefront of the Uhuru movement. And so, again, but as they framed it, is that this, a conspiracy is a partnership to commit a crime, and the crime that they said that we partnered in was with Russia to this, crime to work as agents. But of course, there was absolutely no evidence that chairman had ever worked as an agent of anybody. Something that, was made very clear again at the trial, and much to the devastation of the prosecution and the FBI, agents that were on the stand, that completely lied. So just to say that, and again, these overt acts that were, labeled in the indictment included like talking, like, literally speeches of the chairman, writings that the chairman has done, publications, speeches. All of this was seen as overt acts. And as our, attorneys had said, this is the first time that this law has been used on pure political speech alone. And so that was kind of long-winded, but I appreciate that.
No, that was the kind of thorough. Can you repeat the website that you mentioned?
Yes. So if you're on YouTube, you can just type in Uhuru TV, or you can go to youtube.com/The Burning Spear TV. That's the main website where all of the recordings, but really where you can find the information about the reenactment, or go to Hands Off Uhuru. That's handsoff.uhuru.org, and we have past recordings on there as well.
Okay. So youtube.com/Uhuru TV.
Yeah, that's the quicker way. Easier to remember.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And Uhuru means freedom. Just want to say that.
Uhuru means freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does, or rather, what I wanted to ask is, at the hearing, folks are going to be at the hearing. Will they have a chance to speak at the hearing?
Well, that all of that is still being, determined in terms of how the structure of the hearings will go. We know that our attorneys will definitely make their recommendations for each of the Uhuru 3 about some of the main points that the government is using to levy the sentence. The thing is that there are no sentencing guidelines for this type of charge. And so we really are kind of going into it, not blind, but we're, taking everything that we know is the truth about the chairman, Penny and Jesse, about their work, about, any, some of the things that will also be discussed, like in any type of hearing, is about how, will they be incarcerated? Will these comrades come out? After this? Some of this stuff is still unknown, but one thing that it just left my brain, but to say that so part of what but thank you, good memory today. Part of what I know, and I hope we will have a chance to also present in the sentencing hearing, is following the verdict, we put out a call to the people to write letters, character letters on behalf of the chairman, Penny and Jesse. And, we were looking for 500 for each of the comrades, and we got over 1,600 letters from the people. Just amazing, letters writing on behalf of why these comrades should not spend one day in prison, and pleading to the judge for a more lenient sentence or no sentence at all. And so these are some of the things that will be presented in the courts, and hoping that the judge, and some things that were actually revealed at our last webinar, and I'm just paraphrasing now because I don't have it right in front of me, but that, even the judge himself has kind of looked at this and, seeing this as, something that really, is, for lack of a better word, a waste of time in terms of if we're really going to make this type of case, precedented, then, this is something that he's going to have to, he has a lot on his shoulders as well. Right. And so I think he's realizing that, in this process. And so, um, you know, I have full faith in our legal team who have been just tremendous. And the people, really, it's the people. And none of this, we would not have been where we are in these 2.5 years without the people. So we have over 100 people who have signed up to come to the sentencing. We're going to pack the courtroom itself. There's an overflow room. We have the largest courtroom in the building. We're going to pack that. We're going to pack the overflow room, and we want people, and there will be people outside on the streets. And so this is what the judge and the prosecution are going to have to walk through when they get there Monday morning, is the people. So yeah, that's how we're coming in.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you comrades may not be able to make it. And that's why even just this opportunity to, speak about the sentencing and this case overall is so important, because, we're even seeing a like insurgency, I guess you could say, of and for lack of a better word, because it's not alternative media, but media that speaks to the people and that has a platform that is allowing us to have these types of discussions. And so this is what we hope we can also continue to win outside of the courtroom and post sentencing, is building upon all of the other anti-colonial, imperialist projects, thought crimes, if we can say, bringing all of this to the forefront. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and with Trump's re-election, with the incoming administration, who are very clearly interested in not only suppressing dissent but making a show of suppressing dissent.
Yeah.
It's the precedent is vital, and should weigh even heavier on that judge's shoulders. I think it's certainly a time for most people who have any kind of awareness to really be weighing what their values are, in these positions, people, I should say, in these positions, everybody, but I'm really talking about these people in these positions of power, and influence, watching and understanding what is trying to occur, in the US government. They've got some weighty responsibilities, some weighty responsibilities. So depending on who this judge is, um, that's an indice as well. But yeah, I'm also interested in what you just mentioned in terms of the kind of, really from the outset, the just kind of expansive support from media outlets, as I've understood, internationally, right? In terms of looking at following this process, and looking at the issues in it. And maybe you can speak a little bit to kind of the range of different kinds of interviews, even that just chairman has done, and his level of visibility and exposure during this time.
Right on.
What has that looked?
Right. I appreciate that question. And, to initially say that the first media entity to cover this case was the Burning Spear Media. And that's really important to say, because that is, Burning Spear is one of the oldest institutions of the African People's Socialist Party. And part of what, part of why we also came under attack was that, the chairman was able to speak about, what was happening in the world on his own platform, on a platform that was developed for and, by the African working class. And so with that, we have, a clear example of the importance and the true threat of, as it's just, described, independent media, or, anything that is not part of the bourgeois colonial, media entity state, that this is actually a threat, to the larger, body that tries to govern how the people, sum up what's happening in the world. So that was huge, because we were able to hold a press conference on the steps outside of the chairman's home. But in the process of this, we saw many other media entities that have that have been around and that have too gained a very admirable platforms and audiences who are tuned in to what is happening and working to sum up what's happening in the world. We saw interviews from Democracy Now! To to CNN, to our dear friends with Pacifica and WBAI. And I want to salute even Sister Sheila Hamanaka, who, as I understand, was like one of the first to put this out over the airways, on the radio and just other platforms and mediums that that are still here and that still play a very critical role. And we even saw Chairman, on the Tucker Carlson show, and some things that people would not expect. And even to say that someone like a Tucker Carlson was, booted off Fox because he covered this case twice, on his show. And next thing you know, he was gone. And so this is the how much we had to fight. And I really want to salute our amazing volunteers and the whole media army and the whole media team that has been working relentlessly to get these interviews and press releases and all this information out to the people and out, to the media. But part of what I find is really significant about the struggle to, put this out and to work, with the media is that we are also defining what it's going to look like in the future. And you're just seeing a huge decline in terms of the media now, and just this, scrambling of trying to have any type of relevance. And people are just so tired of it, really. And so this is an exciting time. It really is. And I want to salute the chairman, his ability to, really speak to the people. And because he has always been rooted in the theory that guides the party, African internationalism, it just makes everything make sense. And so whatever platform he's on, he is, able to talk with the people about what's happening, and speak to their audience, and in a way that is so genuine and that is just really shreds every aspect of this case, but also all of the lies that we have been told, about humanity and our ability to work together as one. So, yeah.
Beautifully said. Amazing. Beautifully said.
Uhuru. Yeah. So this is an exciting time to be alive. It really is.
It is, yeah. So are there contingency plans depending on how this hearing might, what the outcome might be?
Yeah. Well, one thing that I know the chairman has said often is that, we're not in this to keep Omali Shatella out of prison or to keep Penny Hess or Jesse Neville out of prison. We are in this because we have the long view. And the African People's Socialist Party is relentless and has taken up the responsibility to see that the African working class and African people are victorious in the chairman's lifetime and in our lifetime. And so part of what is unknown is what will happen on December 16th. We have done everything that we can do as an organization and as the people, and there's always more that we can do. But is to bring all of that there on December 16th. But part of the outcome is that the anti-colonial struggle, is not going to end or, even be much different than what we already planned to do out of, coming out of the 16th. But I will say that a really, significant formation that was built throughout this process was the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition, which was founded on July 8th of last year. And this was, again, we talked about all of these forces coming in from all over the political spectrum, bringing in, bringing to the forefront all of the different struggles that are happening around political prisoners, about, around Cuba, around what's happening in Palestine, around the, just the question of free speech. There's, reparations. All of these struggles came under one, under one banner, under one, non-sectarian coalition called the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition, and that will continue. We have to continue to build that coalition and take that work out into the world. All of the various struggles, cannot happen in isolation, as we say, but not just that, but as the chairman says, well, I mean, as he reiterates, a quote from Che Guevara is, solidarity is sharing the same fate, whether in victory or in death. And we see all of these, struggles as equally important. And we say in this coalition, all power to the people and Black power to the African nation, because we understand that as African people, the struggle against colonialism is that is our main and should be our main struggle, because if we end colonialism, we end all the iterations of, as is described as fascism. We see a Cuba that is literally can actually achieve what it intended to do in the 50s, and and we see every struggle that we see will be victorious. And so the struggle against colonialism has to continue, and it will, and it must. So we hope people will tune in. I want to invite everybody to go to the website, handsoffuhuru.org. And I'm saying that because on that day, on December 16th, just as we did during the trial, we will have live updates. You will hear from members who are on the ground about what's happening as each sentence comes down. So like the sentencing begins at 9 a.m. Eastern time. So at 6 a.m. for those of us out here in the West Coast, but you'll have an opportunity to hear each sentencing is like back to back to back. So there'll be one at 9, one at 10, one at 11. And so somebody will be giving you an update about what's happening. There will be a press conference before and after the sentencing. And then later on in that afternoon, a summation. So there'll be plenty of time for us to sum up and to, hear about what's happening on December 16th, but also calling on people to also join this fight back at handsoffuhuru.org/coalition.
Do we know, I mean, you talked a little bit about him, but do we know much about this judge, like maybe who appointed him, or is he elected? This is the federal bench, right?
Yeah, this is the federal bench. He mentioned something, and that I don't know. He does mention something about the circuit, this and whatever circuit that he's, has to answer to. And so the judge has the power, but he will, if you ask him, he might, it sounds like he's recognizing that there's others too that may, have some kind of yielding in how the final decision is made. But yeah, this is also the judge who our, brilliant attorney Leonard Goodman, who is our lead attorney, and I must say has carried this case pro bono for the past 2.5 years. So that's a huge contribution to the over $3,000 something dollars, 300,000 something that we raised. Leonard Goodman was who represents Penny Hess, has doing this pro bono. He wrote a brilliant motion to dismiss, and the judge rejected that. And and so I think Leonard even wrote 2. We've had amicus briefs that have come, written from the National Lawyers Guild, and so the judge has seen all of this, and has continued to deny, and then taken it to trial. So yeah, have to do some more research on that. Yeah.
And his options could be, well, he's got many options, right? I mean, if he's rejecting the motion to dismiss, but he could do something like probation or these various.
Yeah, like exactly. Some of the outcomes could be probation, no fine, but probation. And I just want to say one of the letters, I had a chance to read some of the really profound letters that came in, and one person had made a comment and something around, a sentence for Amalia Shatella should be that he has to continue to give speeches and to, go out and to teach people about colonialism, like, as this community service work. And it's, so I just think like the judge has the ability to, to do the right thing. and time served. These comrades for the past 2.5 years, they've had their passports removed. They have essentially been on parole for the past 2.5 years. They've had to check in with the parole officer, every week. Anytime they want to travel, they have to say so if they want to cross state lines. They've had, bank accounts have been closed, in the process. Personal belongings and just really personal questions and types of interrogations have, happened in the preparation for the sentencing. In particular, they had the chairman and them in handcuffs and leg irons when they went in for their, for the initial charges after the indictment in April of last year. And so, like I said, time served, and we want people to know that this is what they have had to endure, and it's not to have any type of pity on the Uhuru Three, because that is not at all what they're asking for, but to recognize that this was a political attack, but we are still dealing with a very hostile state that will that does have the power to lock up our leadership, as they've had and tried to do and have done in the past. So free the Uhuru Three, and long live, Chairman Amalia Shatella, and the struggle, the Black liberation struggle. And what has been defined in this period is what true solidarity looks like, which we can see in Penny Hess and Jesse Neville too. It's really setting a like another unprecedented definition of what solidarity is for the Black liberation struggle. Yeah. So there's been a lot of victories that we can claim. Yeah. Uhuru.
Yeah.
True.
The victory cannot be cast in shadow. The victory cannot be shadowed. The institutions built, the minds are opened, the community is witness, and the community is served, deeply embedded in community memory. There's nothing really that can be done, and so one thing we do know about a contingency is what is it? Forward ever. We know that.
Backwards never. Right on. Yep.
Yeah.
Uhuru, Tasha. Yeah.
Right Tasha had mentioned sort of the international coverage. Are you expecting? Is there an international tie-in for coverage on Monday or the Sunday rally?
I appreciate you mentioning that. So in terms of like international media, I don't know exactly, but I can say that our media team has a wealth of I won't say connections, but have made a lot of really profound relationships with other media entities that are not just here within the borders of the United States. And so those individuals, like for example, during the trial, have been helpful with like translation of of some of the information coming down as well. And that's why we're inviting everybody to follow along on the website. And if any other entities want to do some type of correspondence during that period, now's the time for us to kind of develop some of that before Monday. But to say that our comrades, the Uhuru movement is international, and so we do have members in in Europe, all throughout Africa as well. And on this Saturday, December 14th, in London, the comrades there, the Hands Off Uhuru Organizing Committee in London, will be holding a mobilization at the U.S. Embassy, in preparation for the Uhuru 3 trial. And so our lead organizers there will be on the ground, as well as on, I believe, on December 15th in occupied Azania, or South Africa. The comrades there will also be holding a their own rally and mobilization as well. And so we will have international mobilizations taking place the weekend leading up to the sentencing. And but if there's anybody that we have missed and that we don't know about that we should, please email us at info@handsoffuhuru.org, because we can't do this alone, and we want everybody to have access to what's happening.
Thank you.
Great question. Yes. Thanks for bringing that back. Yeah.
Excellent.
Uhuru.
Tasha, you got anything else?
I don't have anything else. This has been inspiring, in the face of whatever,
Yeah.
the weight of the moment is, and the weight of the situation is, it is nonetheless inspiring. And
Yeah.
as you said, Mwezi, these are exciting times. These are exciting times. And um, again, the career and impact of the African People's Socialist Party in the community is what it is, and will continue, and continue to be so.
Yeah.
Um, One other little piece that I didn't get in when we're talking about all this discretion and intent stuff is,
Mm.
the flip side. I said to Yusuf earlier, the flip side of with all of this free flowing and ease of finding intent, and when they're looking to, right, accuse you of conspiracy, and how difficult
Mhm.
it is to
Right.
prove intent when it has to do with the violations of civil rights, right? Because you got to
Right.
prove intent, and that's supposed to be the thing that is almost impossible to prove,
Mhm.
Right.
but just,
Exactly.
that shows you the frivolity and the, um, just the lack of gravity, and the, what is it, the, what was the assertion in Wazy, that the law is the
Yeah.
opinion of the classes,
Exactly.
whatever the whim is, right?
Whatever they
Mhm.
say is intent today, then that's what it will be tomorrow, and it might change,
Right.
like you said. Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
thank God, thank us, thank our thank our ancestors were
Thank
building a,
Garvey. Yeah.
right, thank Garvey, that we are building a world that where uh, social agreement and law will have meaning, right?
Yeah.
We'll have, we're just
Exactly.
have meaning,
Yes.
and character, right?
Yes.
Will
Yes.
um again be at the pinnacle of our ideals. So,
Exactly. Well said.
Mhm.
Well said. That is a world I want to live in, and it's one that I truly believe will happen. And as they say, there's a quote that's in the movement, and I can't find it. I have it on an old calendar somewhere. The Uhuru movement, but it's a quote by the chairman about revolutionaries are optimists. And there's more
Mhm.
that he says in there, but it's that, that we can actually see, like see and envision a new world. And it's so true. It just spoke to me because it's exactly how I feel. And it's not this like whimsical thing. It's real and it's happening. It's not even something we have to look for. We can see it and right on the ground. And that's what came under attack on July 29th. And that's what's been under attack since, since Africans even first, gained our freedom back and, with Africans in Haiti and throughout the world. And so this is not over. And like you said, the ancestors, everyone's going to be with us on December 16th and forward to, freedom. So Uhuru.
Yes.
guru.
Yeah. Uhuru.
Do we have any other announcements?
Well, what can I say? Go to handsoffuhuru.org. That's where all the updates are. On the
Okay.
homepage, you'll see where you can sign up. We are asking people, even if they can't make it to the sentencing, to still fill out that form. We're using everyone's information to keep you updated on the links for the rallies. And and when we win, we want to be in your city and bring the
Mhm.
Uhuru 3 there and celebrate. And so stay plugged in, stay connected, and and just I just want to say that everything that's happening around the world in this period, uh again, when we say should not happen in isolation, this is the place where and this is a time when all of our fight backs need to happen as one. And so bring your issues, bring it all in. And there was something else I was going to say, but it's totally unrelated um to what our discussion was, but it was a question I had for Joko. But I'll and maybe it's relevant, um but
Everything
I'll
was
bring
relevant,
it back.
all
Yeah.
connected.
Okay. Okay, so that's me summing up the announcements. And I do encourage people to go back to our website to check out the trial reenactment. It was just really phenomenal. They had bobbleheads and avatars, and it was great. So really do go back. There was 3 episodes. They're about an hour long. But the symbol of Joko, I noticed on the background, there's this like another iteration of it. And I was just curious about what that meant, because I don't think I've ever asked that question.
It's always a great thing to explain. So when I was thinking about Joko and what it was meant to do, I consulted with a brother who is also a traditional Ifa priest for a symbol, a concept that captured the work of deliberation in the community, problem solving, conflict resolution, thinking. And so he said, Joko is the name. And he did divination, because that, we're those kind of folk, and whatnot. And what is called the Odu, which is this set of linear symbols coming from the Ifa corpus, if you will. It's called the, oh my God, I haven't said it in so long.
Osu Otura.
Thank you. Osu Otura. Osu Otura. Which means speak the truth, right? The God support those who speak the truth. So it's all about uplifting truth in every circumstance.
Wow.
Osu Otura. That's what that's about.
Wow.
And what you see, the cornmeal plate that what you see in the background, Yusuf recently got inspired to use, is right. So when the divination is done, the design, right, the linear design is written in cornmeal, right? In on Santa Rosalia in in Los Angeles on a little plate in cornmeal, right?
That's good. Yep, exactly.
On a beautiful stone divining board. That looks brilliant. But yeah, that's
powerful.
Really a picture, of the divination that was done by the priestess. So that's what that is.
Thank you, friends. I appreciate that, and I think that that even sums up, why we're here and what we're, like you said speak the truth, and that those who speak the truth will be defended and supported. And I think that's the struggle, for our people. And since we are materialists, when we are free and we are a self-governing people, we should elect Joko as the as our deliberators, as our community deliberators. I know you all have been a part of really important work in the community in that regard. So yeah, thank you so much for indulging me with that question.
Thank you for asking.
That was a great question. Something we've been wanting to do, actually, right? We had talked about doing. So your question was right on time.
Right on.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Well, freedom in our lifetime.
Freedom in our lifetime.
Yes.
Lifetime.
And we've been at it for an hour. We'll go ahead and jump off.
All right.
Thank you for coming in,
so
sharing, helping us, prepare for next week.
Yes.
And it bears repeating, right? Freedom in our lifetime.
Yes.
The empire is in crisis.
They are.
Yeah.
We are winning.
Seize the time.
Uhuru. We will win.
Ooh.
All right, world out there. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe. Please like and share. Spread the word. And spread the word about supporting the Uhuru 3 with this sentencing coming up on Monday.